What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank, and today I want to talk about the comparison of violence in Nigeria to America. And because the reason why I want to talk about this is because as I do my videos, I make my videos, as people watch me, go places, go various different places, I get a lot of worrying comments from Nigerians, mostly Nigerians. And at first I was like, okay, they're just being, they're being caring. Obviously, they're being very caring, and they just want to make sure I'm safe while I'm out here exploring their country, right? They want to make sure I have the best experience possible, and they want to make sure that I stay out of trouble or I stay out of danger because they know their country more than I know my country, right? But what I'm finding is a pattern of people who are just kind of like overly frightened for anybody coming to their country, and I've always seen that as a problem, right? It's always been a problem because white people for 500 years have been telling black people how absolutely dangerous it is to come to Africa, how absolutely terrifying it is to come to Africa, and it's convinced African Americans, right, for a very long time, that Africa is a very terrible place to go to, right? To the point to where African Americans will go to Europe before they go to Africa. They will go to the epicenter of white European imperialism, where the pure concentration of white people who view us in a negative light. They will go travel to a place where there's nothing but white people who look at you as subhuman. Black people would travel to the Middle East. They would travel to the Middle East, to a place where these Arabic people, these historically mixed race people, because that's what Arabic is not a race, just like Latino is not a race. Arabic is just a language, right? But these people in the Orient who historically been known to treat Africans horribly, like slaves. We know their moral compass is not conducive to Africanness, but yet black people have no problem flying to Dubai. African people, when I say black, I mean African, no problem flying to Dubai to go into the heart of the invader. So we'll go to the invader's homeland and enjoy the spoils of their conquering, and the spoils of their debauchery, and the spoils of their sex trafficking, and the spoils of their international slave market. We'll go to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. I'm talking about not everybody, all African people, no matter where. We have no problem going over there to where we know for a fact that their countries is ran by sex. They have sex trafficking. They have child sex trafficking. They have slave labor, and it's rampant. Europe, sex trafficking, slave labor, rampant in Europe. Like, we'll go those places and feel absolutely safe, have absolutely no qualms about going there and just dilly-dallying around places and just having a good time amongst people who don't view us as human. But when it comes to Africa, the one place where everybody has always been welcome, which is the problem, we have a problem with that. And if you really sit back and think about it, Africa, right, and African people amongst, I'm not going to say they're only one, because the Polynesians are like this, the Australians were like this, Southeast Asians are somewhat like this. We're very welcoming to people, but Africans in particular, very welcoming. When I talk about Africans, I want you to always include Polynesians, they're our cousins and stuff, because they have the same mentality and attitudes we do, all right? I just want to throw that out there. But Africans are probably the only group, one of the only group, everybody's welcome. Everybody's met with love, happiness, care. Everybody is greeted. Everybody is given a wholehearted opportunity to come and be embraced in the culture. Yet, white people, for centuries, have been telling us, African people, that Africa is a place of danger, a place to be afraid of, a place to be scared of, right? So we're convinced, we've been conditioned. It's not our fault. We've been conditioned. And now we just so happen to be in the age of information where black people are finding out that all that was a lie. All that was a lie. But one of the biggest problems is there are a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Africans in particular, but Nigerians specifically I'm talking about, who feel so negatively about their own country even though they have reasons, right, to feel negative about their country. Because as peaceful as this place is, they have their own issues, right? And all their issues look like them, black, right? They have their own issues, right? So the main people who talk trash, who've been talking trash about their own country, are the people who decided that their country was no longer a place they wanted to be, and they want to go to the West. They want to go to America. They want to go to the UK. They want to go to Canada because they saw a better opportunity here, right? Because America and the West do a very good job of advertising themselves as the greatest place in the world, as Disney World. Now, yes, America has great opportunity, right? And if you have enough money within your own country to buy a plane ticket and establish yourself within a Western capitalist system, so that you can take advantage of all the opportunities that capitalism has to offer, you're going to do that. That's what people want to do. That's why so many people here in Nigeria don't see the value of what they have here, because when they turn on the TV, everything looks great. Also, their politicians, their politicians are politicians, and they do what politicians do. We know that our politicians suck in America, both Democrats and Republicans, and their politicians here in Nigeria suck, both all three of their parties, right? But here's a question. Can you name me one country that has politicians, no matter what party they're a part, that's awesome and great and everybody wants to be like that? You can't. You can't name me one country. There's not one country, not one system on this whole planet where the leaders do right by the people wholeheartedly, right? So when it comes to politician and corruption, it's all across the board. It's just what kind of corruption it is. But as I travel around Nigeria, I try to tell people on my show, I'm a well-seasoned traveler, all right? Well-seasoned. I'm a citizen of the world. I know how to operate. I know how to move about. I know what to do. I'm very well-educated on how to be an ambassador for my people when I go places, how to represent myself as an American, how to represent myself as an African-American, and how to represent myself as an African. I know how to represent myself well. I know how to protect myself. I know what to look out for. I cannot be scammed. I'm unscammable. Why? Because I used to be in sales, all right? And sales is how to master scamming people, straight up, all right, period. If you're in sales, if you ever went to a car lot and ever have dealt with a person trying to sell you a car, that's the ultimate and the best scammer, all right? If you can deal with them, you can deal with any of these just low-level scams they have here, all right? But what I want to say is we need to change our mentality about what's really safe and what's not. Because honestly, all the things that happen in Nigeria now, you have things like some traditional things that are bad, right? You got some people who do traditional rituals, or they use traditional rituals as a excuse to do debauchery, right? To do degenerate shit, right? To do death and murder. You have money rituals, right? You have old traditional ways that are old African traditional ways that are outdated and no longer necessary or no longer conducive to a good living environment for anybody, right? There's a lot of traditional things within Africa that originate from us that needs to be eliminated and destroyed. That's facts. There are things like religious violence. Religious violence happens in every country. But the difference is that when you see the violence on TV, because America has no problem showing you how much violence happens in America, in Africa. They want to show you that Africa is violent. Any opportunity the American or the Western media has to show there's something wrong in Africa, they're going to show it. So when you turn on the TV and you see Africa, all you see is nasty, disgusting violence and bombs and guns. That's all you see, right? So it puts something in your head to think, damn, if I go there, I'm going to be caught up in that. I don't want to be caught up in that, right? So you want to stay safe where you at. But where you are in America is not safe. The violence and I'm going to tell you the truth, the violence that you see in Nigeria, right, if you ever see any violence in Nigeria, understand that violence has been sponsored by some rich politician that has a motive, have an agenda. Just like in America. Just like we got the right-wing conservative people pumping out that white racist Christian stuff. And that's why we got young, impressionable, stupid white people going out committing domestic violence against people who are not just like them, right? Committing violence against people who are gay. Committing violence against people who are black. Committing violence against people who are Asian. Committing violence against people who are Latino. White males, Christian males. White Christian males, that group is a domestic terrorist group issue that we have in America that the federal government has already stated is, in fact, the biggest threat to America. White Christian males, evangelical white Christian males in America, is our version of the Taliban. The Taliban is nothing but a political organization in Afghanistan, which they are Muslims, males, who have a certain way of thinking. They're conservative, literally. Conservatism doesn't mean white Christian conservatism. Conservatism is different depending on where you are. Liberalism is different depending on where you are. We need to expand our minds and understand that things are different depending on where you are. That's why you can be a black conservative, right, in Africa, but your black conservative ideologies and viewpoints don't mesh with the white European views of conservatism, because they view to conserve white superiority. That's what American conservatism is. White supremacy. 100% white supremacy. Liberalism or democratic, democracy, liberals and progressive, they're about globalism, inclusion, right? Everybody don't want to be included. Everybody don't want to be in the same bowl, and you got some people who just want to be their own bowl, right? Some people want to be multicultural. Some people want to be pure, right? FBA, right, is a group of conservative African Americans who don't want to mix with other black people who look like them. They are conservative. They want to conserve just them. They want to tribalism. That's what it is. Bigger, more complicated version of tribalism. But back to the main point, America is a lot more dangerous than Nigeria. America is so dangerous and is so violent, we don't even think about how much violent we are in our own homeland, where we're comfortable within our violence, than it is in Africa. We think that the violence here is inherently worse than the violence in America, when actuality the violence in America is way worse than the violence in Nigeria or various other countries. Why? Because America has a culture, white supremacist Western culture of death and destruction. It's white culture. Europe has a culture of death and destruction. That's what they do. Grape, pillage, murder, steal, rob. That's what Europeans has been doing since their existence. For 5,000 years, that's what they do. If you look at European culture, what do Europeans have to be proud about? They're proud about their ability to kill. They're proud about their ability to destroy. They're proud about their ability to conquer. That's what they do. That's their culture. And in America, that's our culture. So black people, because we're forced to live within the culture of white people, we pick up on their culture. Because if you're within the culture, you have no choice but to be within that culture, right? So that's why we have death music. That's why we have music that talks about killing each other. And you have music that talk about death and destruction and drugs, right? But if you listen to African music all around the world, the reason why Afrobeat and Caribbean music is so much more popular and easier to listen to, and why we prefer to go to those type of parties, because we get to say the same great vibe of the African spirit without the white Western death infused within it. That's what makes hip-hop, the version that's being popularized by white corporations to the world, that's what makes it so dangerous. They're using the power of the African spirit, the power of the African drum, and infusing that white Western death culture within it, right? Everybody in America, everybody has a gun. We think that's normal that everybody has a gun, but everybody's not a warrior. Everybody's not trained to use a gun. Everybody don't understand the responsibility of having a tool that can take away somebody's life. People just think it's cool to have a gun. The reason why the AR-15 is so popular, because the AR-15 looks cool, looks like a military weapon. It's not quite a military weapon, but it looks like a military weapon. So because of that, everybody wants to have one, because the TV says it's cool. Because white people need that gun. Because without that gun, and they got to stand on the equal playing field with the black man and any other group, it's not so even anymore. That's why they need the gun. You see that big, fat, white dude with his belly sticking out, and got his gun, but he can pick that damn pistol out, and he can pluck your ass off from 200 yards away. No goddamn problem, right? He don't have to huff and puff. He ain't got to throw the fisticuffs. He ain't got to get sweaty and get wet. He ain't got to fight your big black hawk ass, do he? No, because he's going to pull out his pistol, right? He's going to lay it on his belly, and he's going to pop, pop, pop. He's going to shoot you and all your friends. That's what Europeans are good at. They're good at killing you from a distance and being sneaky. And that's the culture that provided them the opportunity to thrive and destroy everybody on the world. They destroyed the greatest warriors in the world with their gun. You're pretty much a bussy. Well, if you have a gun and your thing is, I'm gonna be tough with this gun and I'm gonna shoot people who don't have guns, that make you a bussy. All right? Unless the other person got a gun. If y'all equal, y'all both got guns, then okay, that's fair game. But these white people don't want black people to have guns, if y'all ain't figured that out, right? But America, everybody got a gun. In America, people got a lot of mental illnesses because of the stresses of the capitalistic system. And they stress out. So you equal stressness from the American system. You get overworked, underpaid, stressed out, now have a gun. That's why every time you turn on the news, you see somebody shooting somebody. You see somebody killing somebody. Mass murders happening everywhere. Kids can't even go to school because it's just happening. We don't have more mass murders than we had years in this. We had days in this year. Yet we think that America is inherently safer than Africa. Kids can go to school in Africa. Kids don't have to worry about that in Africa. You can get an argument in your neighborhood in Nigeria, not worry about him coming back with an AK-47 and busting your head wide open. That's not a thing here. And it's not a thing in most Western worlds who have common sense gun legislation. That's why when people have the excuse of, oh, it's not the gun that kills people, it's crazy people kill people and they want to protect the gun. That's bullshit. Because if you look at real statistics and real data, you will see that other Western nations, right, that are like us, that's at the level of us, right, they don't have guns. Guess what they also don't have? They don't have mass shootings. They don't have as many murders as we do. America has more murders and death and destruction than any other Western country because we have more guns. You see, in the UK, they have a lot of stabbings. Why? Because they don't have guns, right? Stabbing is a more intimate thing. But guess what? They don't have people going out shooting. You don't hear stories in Europe about people going around killing people with AK-47s or M16s or Kalashnikovs or anything. You don't hear that because they don't have access to it. You can't, their people of mental illness don't have access to guns. They can't just go to the store and buy a gun. They got to be more creative, right? So that's a deterrent by itself. The proof is in the pudding. Therefore, you can't say that it's not the gun. No, it's the gun. Having access to more death and destruction with mental illness causes more death. And that's why America is a place of death, right? It's a place of opportunity, but it's also a place of death. It's a place of technology and high learning, but it's also a place of death. Right? It's a place of crime. There's more crime in individual states in America than there is in entire countries in Africa. It's just that they don't talk about it. And they never talk about the death and destruction that happened in the white communities. Why? Because that doesn't fit the narrative that the white Western world wants to project to the world. But more death and destruction happens between white on white people. And they're actually disenfranchised because since no one talks about it, because no one wants to talk about how white people kill each other every day, how white on white crime is an epidemic, is a problem in America, how white people killing themselves with drugs and doing other crazy ass sports because they ain't got shit to do. If a white person ain't killing themselves with fentanyl, if a white person, biker gang ain't shooting and murdering each other, if a white person ain't having standoffs in the middle of fucking boondock freaking Kentucky, right? If they ain't doing that, they're fucking on a goddamn dirt bike trying to jump over a goddamn brick. They're killing themselves left and right. It's a death culture. And we have to understand where we are. Have some real situational awareness. People like to say situational awareness, but sometimes they don't have it. Right? Situational awareness is understanding in totality what exactly is happening in your area. What's happening in your country compared to what's happening in other countries. And using common sense, logic, and information, especially since you have access to it. That's one thing that's great about America is as much death and destruction and opportunity we have in America, we also have access to unprecedented amount of information. We have a Google amount of information. Did you know Google is a number? That's why it's called Google. All right, Google is a massive number. But anyway, I think we just need to change our mindset and understand Africa is a much peaceful place to live. Much peaceful place to live. By far, it doesn't even come close. Africa's peaceful. You come here, the people are peaceful. Yes. Are there criminals here? Sure. Are there people that want to take advantage of you? Sure. Are there the same degenerate, demonic, bombastic people here than there are in other places? Sure. But you know what they don't have access to? They can't go down to your local store and have their pick of whatever semi-automatic machine gun they want. No, if they want a gun, they got to go work at it. They got to go way the hell out and go find somebody who connected to somebody, go find that. And if they do, they probably got a bolt action gun. They only get 1 or 2 rounds at a time. They're not firing off 30, 60 rounds in a couple seconds. That's just not a thing. Okay? So for all you people that are just so worried about coming to Africa, understand when you come here, your threat level goes down at least 90%. Don't listen to the threat levels you see on the United States government census where it tells you have the little red, orange, and in some places, yeah, that's the case. But that is meant to keep you here and deter you from going to those places. Because keep in mind, while they tell us all that stuff, white people are here having a goddamn ball. by themselves. White women will come to Nigeria by themselves, come to the middle of the village and have a ball and be as safe as they ever been. They're safer here than they are with their own people in Europe. They're safer here than they are with their people in America. I guarantee you. Just look at any white woman that's in Nigeria. Look at any white woman that's in Nigeria, and any white man that's in Nigeria, I'm telling you right now, they will tell you they're safer here than they've ever been where they're from. So for my Nigerian people, you guys got to get that negativity out your head. Yes, everywhere there will always be criminals. There will always be death. There will always be murderers. There will always be bad people. But in totality, this place is much safer than the West. That's all I got to say. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach them. I'm out.